You started 5-2 last year just to lose your last 5 games and miss out on a bowl game. This team deserved more than that. All right. And I think I have reason to believe that this team will get more than that this upcoming year in 2025. The Bearcats and Scott Satterfield, who, people talk about him being on the hot seat. One of those coaches in college football that maybe doesn't get talked about a lot, but not necessarily living up to expectations right now. But here's the thing. They got a revamped wide receiver room. They got what I believe is a good quarterback. The running back room is still strong, even without Corey Kiner. The offensive line, we're gonna have to see. You do lose your best tackle, an NFL tackle, and then your best guard as well. Defensively, your front seven's looking really good, with questions though in the secondary for sure. This could be a much better team than people are saying, right? Because like when this is a team that you look at other teams and you go through their schedule and you're marking up wins and losses, like I think most people just look at Cincinnati and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a win for us." I I don't think that that's what I don't think that's the case with this team. There's some dangerous players on this football team, and I think they could be a serious problem, especially matchup wise for some of the teams that they're going to be playing against this year. So, CD, how are we feeling about the Bengals? Or not the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bearcats this
Yeah,
2025 season?
it's an exciting time. I think obviously a lot of pressure on Satterfield. Like it's year 3 now. You got your quarterback. You've settled into the Big 12. Now it's time to grip it and rip it, right? So here we are. Expectations 6.5 win total. So Vegas, isn't expecting you to compete for a conference title. That's not the expectation right now. The expectation is to go to a bowl game, to win 7 games, to be consistent, to not lose 5 in a row. Things like that you want to see. And also, too, a side note, this is not going to affect the 2025 season, but you got to recruit better, man. Being in the 60s at Cincinnati and recruiting wise is just ridiculous. Moving to the Big 12. I know recruiting rankings, isn't the end all be all, but it's very important. Okay. Like I do believe it's something that you do have to consider when looking at the future of a program. But yeah, being in the mid 60s year in and year out is Satterfield's got to do better than that. And also that's making you rely on transfer portal guys even more so. Like you look around and how many starters do you have that you recruited at Satterfield? Like actually recruited. It's not a ton of them. So here we are. But yeah, I think there's pieces to like, starting with the quarterback. Brennan Sorsby, man, I will die on that hill on his defending him, right? I think the last year was some up and downs. I think your receiver room could not create separation. And we'll talk about that when we get to that room. But hopefully you're bringing in some guys that can do that for you, or at nonetheless win contested one-on-one balls. But Sorsby, what he can do with his legs and with his arm, being one of the better true dual threat quarterbacks in the Big 12 and in the country, is really exciting. I think another year under Brad Glenn, another year with Scott Satterfield, and you feel like he should be taking a step. This is year 4 for him, so he's got one more year of eligibility, being the red shirt guy he is. Um, all in all, I like it, man. I like Sorsby. He's a guy I trust. I mean, if he's going to be out there, number 2 running for you out there in the Bearcat Black, I feel good about any time you have a chance to win these games, especially in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think people are quick to dismiss him because, you see him leave and you had these higher expectations and, they didn't make a bowl game and the team that he left, ended up making the college football playoffs with his, you know, the guy that replaced him, Curtis Rourke, had a fantastic season. I still think Brendan Sorsby's amazing. I think he's a good football player. And I think he's got a seriously decent supporting cast around him, particularly in that running back room. You lose Corey Kiner. He was really good. All right. But getting Tawi Walker in the portal from Wisconsin, previously at Oklahoma, like that is a good get. And then not to mention you have Evan Pryor, who is a former transfer from Ohio State. Like those two guys are very solid. I'm not sure necessarily what you have. I think you got some unproven stuff beyond that, but for top 2, I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's about as good as a 1-2 punch as you'll see in the Big 12. A couple guys you trust, a couple guys have been around the block, have been playing college football for a long time. We joke about being above the legal drinking age. They are well above that, which is good news for Cincinnati. and Sorsby to help him, take some pressure off of them, get into second and third and manageable with a solid running game. Into that wide receiver room, yeah. I mean, you bring in some guys in the portal. Last year, you obviously lose, your quote unquote star, right? Xavier Henderson was the alpha in that room, 738 yards. He did have 4 touchdowns. Tony Johnson is also gone as well. He had 6 touchdowns for you last year. So those are some, big pieces of your receiver room that are gone. The reality is, though, I feel better about this group as a whole. Outside of Henderson, and even Henderson at times struggled. Like, you struggled to create separation. You struggled against man coverage, right? Things that were making it really hard for Sorsby to play and play well for you. You bring in some guys, Cyrus Allen, Caleb Goody, right? Guys that you feel like you should be able to create separation with, on the team. And then, yeah, there's Noah Jennings is also in there too. Jeff Caldwell's the fun, intriguing one at 6'5", 6'6", and what he can do, contested catching, the production he put up at Lindenwood last year is really exciting. Matthew, am I crazy to feel better about this room than I did last year?
No, you're not crazy at all. I mean, I think you got a set of versatile pieces. I think some guys that you're, betting on the upside of for sure. But Caleb Goody, I liked what he had. Cyrus Allen at A&M, I was still a little bit confused why his playing time reduced as the season went on. I think he was a very good receiver for them. And I think you're going to get to see it here at Cincinnati. I think that was a very underrated get for Cincinnati out of the portal. And then not to mention the stability of the other pass catchers, at your tight end spot, you get your tight ends back. So, not that they were elite tight ends, but, there's some stability there, for Brendan Sorsby, behind. You have a complete turnover in your wide receiver room, right? So it's nice to have some sort of stability from your pass catchers if you're a quarterback. But yeah, you're not crazy at all for thinking this is a better wide receiver room than it was last year, even with the loss of Xavier Henderson, who was pretty good. On the offensive line, though, I mean, John Williams was pretty good, man. He was a good tackle. Uh, Locking down that left side for you. You bring in Joe Cotton from South Dakota, who's going to get the nod there. And then your right guard, you lose your best guard on your team, and you're going to be replacing with Tyron Tayo, who was from Ball State. Uh, he grades out pretty well, it seems like. Not sure if I'm necessarily going to be relying on it, but Gerhardt at center, I like a lot. Buford was okay at right tackle, but he's coming back again, so you might as well gotta believe that he might get a little bit better there. So I think you got a 5 that you can live with, here in the Big 12. I think if you see some significant steps from those 3 guys, uh, that are, the same as those last year guys, then yeah, I can see this offensive line being pretty solid. What are those transfer portal guys going to look like? I don't know. I mean, coming from the FCS level to play left tackle in the Big 12, that's a tough ask for a guy like Joe Cotton. We'll see. He won the job. So we'll get a good look at him pretty early because in week 1, you're going to be facing a pretty decent team that will have some guys that are going to be able to get around you on the edge.
Yeah, how about your first game playing left tackle, protecting the blind side, and in an NFL stadium against some really good athletes over there in Nebraska? Yeah, Joe Cotton, I think, what would this offensive line group look like if you didn't get him in the spring portal, right? That was a huge win for you. That all of a sudden, like, a lot of people were looking at Cotton as like the most, sought after guy when he was in the portal, just because of the timing and all that, and obviously the positional value that he brings being an offensive tackle in the portal. It makes your offensive line feel a whole lot better than it would have having to trot out whoever, at left tackle outside of Cotton. So I and you're hoping that obviously he plays well, assuming he does. I do worry about the depth here. I don't know a ton about these guys. Obviously, hopefully I don't get to learn more about them. Hopefully they do stay healthy. Those first 5 or 6 guys. The good news is at some spots you do have some older year 3, year 4 guys, which you like to see. You don't want to have to be relying upon 18, 19-year-old kids having to protect Brandon Sorsby and keep your franchise keep your university leader Brendan Sorsby alive for you. But yeah, I mean, this offense as a whole, last year it just struggled with consistency. I thought um, this year I expect that to get a little bit better. I think with the wide receivers with Sorsby year two, hopefully some quality offensive line play, assuming health is a big issue. Obviously, a concern there. If you don't stay healthy along most of your positions, honestly, like I don't love who you have behind Sorsby. I know Jones is a fun kid, and Littenberg's been there for forever, but he's nothing special. Outside of Walker and Pryor, like you said, who knows? You bring in a bunch of transfers. You're going to be relying upon young guys. If those guys go down, outside of Joe Royer, I think there's a huge drop off there at the tight end spot. And then outside that, like the offense, like your first 11 guys, your first 13, 14 guys in your offense, like it's pretty solid. I think very, very respectable in the Big 12. After that, could be of some concern if you have to tap into that depth. Defensively, last year, the storyline of the offseason was the Don, right? Dante Corleone. That was a big, obviously, unfortunate situation for him. Glad to see him healthy. Glad to see him back in a Bearcat uniform. Really excited to see him be fully healthy again because when he is ready to play, he is special. This defense here is year two, right? Under Tyson Velt. How much better is this defense going to be, and who are the important players for us to be looking out for?
I mean, in the front seven, I mean, you were decimated with injuries. Jalen Hunt, gone. Micah Coleman, gone. Dante Corleone was like recovering from blood clots, even though he ended up, he played, over 400 snaps, but like how it just never seemed like he was fully healthy, right? When he is fully healthy, he's one of the better interior defensive linemen in college football. So in a 3-3-5, you got those three guys, right? Plus CJ McCray winning, camp MVP. I think you got some dudes. You added a couple of transfer portal guys just for a little bit of depth, but your top 3, 4, 5 guys here in this rotation are really solid and like I think pretty high level Big 12 players. So if there's anything that you can hang your hat on, I think it's that this defensive line is going to significantly improve in 2025.
Yeah, we know how important that is. Of a 3-3-5, you have to have quality defensive line play. Otherwise, you will get blown off the ball, and it will be struggle. It'll be a struggle for you to stop the run. Yeah, good to see these guys back and healthy. Hunt and Corleone, I think I'm pretty excited about their size and their disruption, what they can do, and their physicality in the Big 12. And even week one, how about go into Arrowhead and just out physical a pretty solid offensive line that Nebraska has and give Raiola and those running backs fits for him. So that'll be fun to watch. With the linebacker room, I like it. I mean, you get Dingle back, right? Jake O'Day is a fun guy, what he can do and his athleticism coming after the quarterback. And then Simeon Coleman, Jonathan Thompson, a couple of, young-ish. Oh, Coleman's younger. A couple guys as well to play your will spot. Yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot, with linebackers, not necessarily like guys that make or break your team necessarily, but having quality guys that are returning is a really, really nice benefit, a really nice baseline. Like, I do, maybe not make or break was the wrong term, but you notice if you've got really bad linebacker play. I think if you don't notice your linebackers, that tends to more likely be a good thing unless you've got elite guys, unless you have those guys that are difference makers and can make plays all across the 52 yards, all across in the backfield, 3 levels of play, and just be absolute studs for most of college football, unless you've got Sammy Brown, unless you've got Harold Perkins when he was in his prime. You saw Abdul Carter before he moved down to the defensive line. Like those guys are special, one of one kind of players. For the most part, though, if I don't hear about the linebackers a lot, they're probably doing good things.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Barlow was good, but I don't think you're going to be missing him a ton. Like you're really losing snaps with Jared Barlow, like leadership snaps and experience, right? He was good. He was a good player, but you still like a lot of these guys that you have here, and these guys also had a lot of snaps last year. I think most of them had 250, 300 plus snaps last year. At least
Rotated,
these guys
yeah.
that are going to be starting. Golday, Thompson, Simeon Coleman, Jack Dingle, playing Mike there. So yeah, I feel pretty good about that linebacker room. Won't be exceptional, but if you're playing behind a defensive line that hopefully they're healthy and playing at a high level as we project them to play at, then I like that linebacker group plenty. The issue comes for me is in this DB room. I mean, it, it was a struggle last year, and now all your DBs, and maybe you got some good transfers, but they're all like 5'9", right? I mean, like they're all 5'9". Like, and the thing is, though, I looked at the schedule and I'm like, oh shoot, they're in trouble because I kind of was looking at the quarterbacks of each of these teams, but I'm forgetting that like not a ton of these teams that have a good quarterback have like giant wide receivers. Nebraska definitely does. TCU's got Eric McAllister. Uh, Actually, I don't even know that he's that big either. But Baylor doesn't have like a ton of huge monsters at receiver. Like your Iowa State doesn't have Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel. It could be manageable. It could be right, which is why I think that yeah, this is a weakness of your team, and like if it goes bad, like it can spiral pretty quickly, especially in the Big 12 with these good quarterbacks. And we don't know what kind of receivers are going to step up every year. There's guys that
Yeah.
step up big time in the Big 12, especially at the wide receiver position. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but seeing Romani Arnold, competing out there with Logan Wilson, who I think officially made the transfer completely to corner because he was playing a lot of safety last year, if I can recall. So yeah, he played. I mean, he kind of played all over the place, but I think he's going to be playing boundary corner. Logan Wilson or Monty Arnold. So Matthew McDoom will also be playing. I mean, 5'9", 5'9", 5'9", are all those guys that I just named. Your safety spot there looks a little bit different. But CD, how we feeling about the secondary?
Yeah, you talked about, and it's not everything being 5'9" in the secondary, having a bunch of corners. Even some of your reserve guys, 5'10". Like it's even
Yeah,
that's not like you have matchups where you can be like, oh, we're gonna see Dane Key in week 1. We need someone to guard a 6'3" receiver. Let's go get our cornerback 3 and 4 and put them out there. No, like you talk about it spiraling. If those 50-50 balls start turning into 70-30, right? 75-25, like that could be a real issue for this defense. The good news is like we hope you have a good pass rush in the fact that those corners won't have to be playing on an island all the time, and that maybe these receivers can't get into positions in the first place to box out these smaller corners. Christian Harrison will be one I'll be keeping my eye on, kid from Tennessee, and what his playmaking ability is. You get the veteran in the room there, Trevon Gala-Collar coming back, thrusted into a bigger role. McDoom, though, I will say, I think he's a really good player. I know he's 5'9". I was not the biggest dude. We saw D'Angelo Pons. Like, he ain't the biggest dude either, right? Coming over from James Madison, going to Indiana. He was 5'9" and he was incredible. So it's not like it's the worst thing in the world to be, that size. It is a little concerning when we already have question marks about these guys. You bring in a bunch of guys in the portal, and they all happen to also be 5'9" too. We'll stop with the 5'9" stuff, but I think it's really important. Like I think it is something to note when you're previewing this team and potentially some of the mismatches they could see down the line. But all in all, I hope with Veit in his second season, you get health in that front seven, and I think it should be a better defense overall. And you look at their schedule. We'll talk about that more in depth. Yeah, you could see some spots where having a good defense is going to be important in playing some of these games.
definitely 100%. So the over win total here sitting at 6.5. I mean, it's plus money to the over. I like look at this and I see like 6 like legitimate, like feel pretty good about those wins. We'll round I guess we'll round down, call it 5. Find a way to steal 1 or 2 of the more games, hit that over under hit the over. Like I think this is a bowl. I think they're getting to 6 wins. All right. I think
Yeah,
Bowling Green's a win. Northwestern State. I think UCF. I really like them against them. I like them against Oklahoma State. I kind of like them against Arizona. I like them against BYU. That's like 6 right there. No, BYU's not a guarantee. Arizona's not a guarantee, right? UCF's not a guarantee. I'm just saying those are games that I like. Cincinnati and then find a way to steal one against TCU or Kansas. Iowa State. I don't know that you're necessarily going to beat Baylor or Utah, but you do get Baylor at home. That's a big deal. So, in conclusion, I'll slightly lean to that over, especially if you're going to give me plus money there. Not a bet for me, but boys, this is one of those teams that call them a keystone team in the Big 12 because Iowa State seems to be a contender. Baylor's looking to be a contender. Utah's looking to be a contender. TCU may be up there as well.
Kansas.
Kansas, a loss to Cincinnati would be tough for any of those teams. So I know Cincinnati probably not going to be competing for a Big 12 championship this year, but they can absolutely set some schools on some detours, as we saw how crazy it was. The final standings in the Big 12 last year were nuts. It was crazy. We were in the last week of the season, and we were like, West Virginia's, what were they, like 6-5? And we're like, oh, they could make the Big 12 championship game if like these 8 things go right. Like it was nuts. It was
Yeah.
nuts. So yeah, I can't wait for the Big 12, and Cincinnati's going to be a huge part of that. What are you on for this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna be on the over here, and I was on it last year, and I got burned. That was one of my best bets headed into the
But
season,
like
and just
you
stood
run,
right there at 5 wins. And
you're gonna right side that one though. I mean
yeah,
injuries. I mean, come on.
yeah. So that I'm not gonna overreact to last year. And listen, I'm not the biggest Scott Satterfield guy. I really am, and I don't think a lot of Cincinnati fans are either. This could go a long way. I think you get to 7, 8 wins with the schedule, which I think you will. 7 wins, I think, is very, very doable. And what I expect you to do, like even pushing 8 wins, would be really, really impressive. Especially after a couple years ago that you really struggled in the Big 12. I do see a realistic opportunity where, let's say you lose to Nebraska, yada yada. What happens there? It's essentially a road game for you. But you go and you beat Kansas and you beat Iowa State, like they're like, there's a chance you're sitting at, what's that put you at, 6-1, right? Against when you're going into Baylor. That's going to be a really important matchup for the Big 12 there. So Cincinnati will be a team we'll probably be previewing once again down the line in with their schedule and how important. You talked about them being a keystone team. Absolutely. They'll be a lot of fun to watch. And with Sorsby, man, he gives you a chance to win these games. Now, obviously, you're playing some really good quarterbacks: Jalen Daniels, Rocco Beck at Iowa State, um,
Devin Dampier, Noah
Devin
Fafita,
Dampier,
Josh
Sawyer
Hoover,
Robertson. Yeah, a
Dylan
lot of good
Raiola,
football players. You got is it Bear Bachmeyer? Who's Tiger Bachmeyer? Who's the kid at BYU?
Bear Bachmar.
Bear Bachmeyer.
How
They got
about
him
Drew
out there.
Pine at Bowling Green?
True Pine at Bowling Green. Who did UCF they just announced? Is it Taquan
Cam
Robinson?
Fancher.
Cam Fancher. Yeah. FAU guy. So, and then the kid from this Big 12 is gonna be so much fun. The
Cam
kid
Fancher was
from
also a Marshall guy too.
yeah. The kid from Haas Henji, the kid from TCU is starting at Oklahoma State, who did some frisky things at his time at TCU. So it's a fun schedule for Cincinnati. Hope you Bearcats fan have fun watching them this year. Make sure to tune along all season for us. But yeah, I mean, I think the over 6.5 would be a big time step up for Cincinnati.